Not quite awake yet, but I want to make the fourth installment of this series that Beverly H. didn't request a series, but she asked a question and I felt like I should answer, even though really her question, I didn't really answer, I only discussed. I'm not here to give answers, I'm here to discuss issues, and we can figure things out on our own, and do more research and know where to look. That's really the way I like to discuss things, open up the table. Not quite awake. So, might not be such a good video, but I feel like maybe it'll wake me up to start making a video. I am on my way to work. What can I say? Videos are just a stream of consciousness. They're extemporaneous, not planned ahead at all. I don't have time to plan them ahead, really, to be honest. They draw on some sources that might not have seen or heard for years, so they could be wrong. And I apologize. Excuse me. Apologize for that. Excuse me. What could I say? So this video we discussed, and I think about things I did discuss, things I didn't mention, things I wanted to mention I didn't. Maybe it's better I didn't. And if I do mention them, excuse me. I'm sorry. I know I shouldn't be doing that. It's very hard to edit these videos. I don't have time. Just make them however they come out. That's how it is. Excuse me. I'm sorry. So this video now will be about the anti-Zionist approach. So we discussed religious Zionism. We discussed non-Zionism. We discussed the curious world of Chabad. Again, didn't make any discussions, sometimes sociological discussions. There was one about Chabad I wanted to make that I neglected to. I was thinking about it, and I forgot. And maybe it's been the Shemaim that I forgot, but if I do mention it, I'll mention it later. Then there were other things that I forgot about, and other friends of mine mentioned. And I might bring those up as well. So, what Beverly asked in the comments to the video was, it seems like it's only Satmar and the Torah Karta that are opposed to the state. Now, I said myself, I'm not opposed to the state of Israel, I'm opposed to a Jewish state. I don't believe in supporting Palestinians. I don't think their cause is actually just, because there were no Palestinians. They were Jordanians, they were Egyptians, they were Turks, they were people under the British Mandate. There was never such a country, a Palestinian Arab country. The Jews before the state of Israel, they called it Palestine. The Jerusalem Post was the Palestine Post. It was Palestine, meaning under the British rule. Now, the only thing that I could say about the Palestinians is that it says in Deuteronomy 32, Parshas Azino, I might not be quoting it exactly right, but it says, I'll say in English because Chesuni b'loy kel, b'loy el, because it's Lashon Chol, I guess. It says, you angered me with a non-God, with atheism, we could say perhaps is what it means. And then it says, I don't remember what the verb is, but it says lo am. It says, I'm going to punish you with a non-people. I once heard as follows. This is not really an expression of the totally of the standard religious anti-Zionist approach, but it's an interesting thing. I remember hearing this in Or Sameach from a bacher in German. I don't remember, someone who was older than me. I don't remember his name. I can picture his face, and he was a shtikla bal musar, and he's the same one who mentioned, being on the subway and seeing Lubavitch being carved b'nei Torah, and he said, "What's this about? You're supposed to be putting tefillin on the fry people. What are you doing?" And he said, "No, we have to bring to everybody." Now, there's something I want to say about that in a moment on the side, but. I'm pretty sure it was the same German who brought this up. He read an article, I'm not sure. Maybe it was in, I forget what was the name of the Jewish Observer. Was it Go to Magazine? Maybe that's where he saw this article. Basically, what it's saying is that it's true, there's no such thing as the Palestinian people. It's a made-up name. But why? Why did God send this to us? Meaning, we always have to remember what the prophet Isaiah says, the Navi Yeshayahu says. Excuse me, I'm not awake yet. He says, Asher Shevet Api. Assyria is the rod of my indignation. It's the stick of my anger, to use more modern parlance. Meaning, a dog, when you hit a dog with a stick, the dog bites the stick. This is a common thing that we always hear in drushes and in Muslim things. An intelligent person understands it's not the stick that's hitting you, it's the person holding the stick. And so if something happens in the world, meaning if we're attacked by another nation, that nation is, or even on a personal level, we're attacked by an individual, it's not the person, it's not the nation that's attacking us, it's God trying to wake us up. And if you get rid of this stick, God has a bunch of other sticks. The issue isn't the Palestinians, just like personal issues, it's not a person who you're fighting with, it's God. Meaning if you make yourself right with God, these things will go away. The question is, then why do the big tzaddikim have opposition and so forth? Sometimes they're vicariously representing the people. They're innocent, but they represent the people, and they take upon themselves the burdens of the people. And sometimes what it is that everyone on their own level, meaning nobody's perfect, and so the tzaddik is judged more harshly for something very minor. Excuse me. Sorry. And whatever. These are the answers we can have. So the point is that the issues that the Israelis have with the Palestinians, if you got rid of the Palestinians, God would send somebody else until the issues were taken care of. A lot of people are like, how can you blame the victim, blah blah blah. That's what the Torah does. What do you mean, how do you blame the victim? It's like I hear Alan Dershowitz. Most of what Alan Dershowitz says about Israel and Zionism makes a lot of sense. And then he goes and he says, it's not anti-Semitic to question Israel, but it's anti-Semitic to put Jews, to judge Jews by a different standard than we judge other nations. And the thing is, that's what the Torah does. That's what God does. That's what Judaism does. Judaism, is that anti-Semitic? Maybe. I don't know. God is anti-Semitic? The Torah is anti-Semitic? Of course not. I mean, unless you change your whole perception of what it means. And we could make discussions about that, but now's not the time and place. But this Ingerman told me, I didn't see the article inside, but I remember, I'm talking about something I remember from 16 years ago, but it's still fresh in my mind. I remember explaining this afterwards. I was sitting on the subway, I was sitting on a bus in Queens, going down Union Turnpike, and explaining this to someone. That's what I remember. That just like there's no such thing as Palestinians, there's no such thing as Israelis. Both of these are modern inventions. You'll often hear Israelis say, Ani lo Yehudi, Ani Israeli. Israelis are going to say, I'm not a Jew, I'm an Israeli. There's a difference. And you'll hear the opposite. Well, I remember Dershowitz in his book Chutzpah. He said, excuse me, I'm sorry. He said his mother said, Jews are not involved in violent crime. Jews shouldn't be involved in any crime. But if God forbid a Jew's involved in a crime, it's usually not a violent crime. Sometimes it is, but usually it's not. Very rarely. So Dershowitz, Alan Dershowitz, he wanted to correct his mother's racism. And one day her apartment was robbed, and they found it was some Israelis robbed. He said, "Look, Ma, you see, who proved you wrong. Here, you were robbed by Jews." And then his mother answered, "Alan, they weren't Jews, they were Israelis." Now the thing is, it's fair to say that because that's what the Israelis usually say. That's not what she meant. What she was saying was more like, something like, what's that guy's name? Comedian. He was a Rav, Jackie Mason. So Jackie Mason, he said, look at the Israelis, they're so different, whatever he said, it's not, he would make all these jokes about the difference between Jews and Israelis, But this is how many, particularly the secular Israelis, look at themselves. That being Israeli is different than being Jewish. It becomes a new invention in a sense. I'm not Jewish, I'm Israeli. These are seen as two separate things. Excuse me. And not only that, but part of being Israeli means, which I agree to a certain point. Australian Haredim. Each of these countries, they have their own Haredim that are slightly different. Then you have another thing in Israel, in Eretz Israel, in the Holy Land, you have the Yerushalmis, who are not Israelis, really. They don't, I mean, in culture, they're not Israelis. They're Jerusalemites, even though they're born in Israel, are Mamela, are Israeli citizens. They don't want to be Israeli citizens. They have no interest in being Israeli citizens. They wish they weren't Israeli citizens, But that's what it's saying, that you angered me with a no God, so therefore I punish you with a non-people. Meaning, why did God send Palestinians? It's mida k'neged mida. It's tit for tat. It's measure for measure. Why? Because you made up this thing of being Israeli instead of being Jewish. So God sent these people who made up this thing of being Palestinian when they're really Arabs. Most of them are Jordanians or Egyptians. Some of them, maybe they've lived in the land of Israel for many years, for many generations. Some of them, most of those came really just because the Jews came, meaning when the Jews came to Israel, there weren't a lot of people living there. There weren't as many Arabs living there as there are now. Yes, the Arabs have a lot more children than the Jews. That's one part of the equation. And the other thing is that many of them moved in, because of the jobs that the Jews were bringing. Work that the Jews didn't want to do, they brought in someone else to do their work. Which, a lot of the Zionists were upset about. They felt that the Jews shouldn't be doing this work. Alright, whatever, it's neither here nor there. That's not the point. Of course, there was always, since the destruction of Jerusalem, there was always a Jewish presence in Jerusalem. Excuse me. But again, it's neither here nor there. They recognized the sovereignty of the other nations that they lived under. Whether it was the Romans, whether it was the Malamutes, whether it was the Turks, whether it was the British, whoever it was, Crusaders, whoever. They recognized that we're in exile to wait for the Messiah to come, and that was the classical approach. And so that's what we could say. But it's, again, I'm not here to defend the Palestinians or to go against them. America Hana used to say he understands the Arabs very well. The people he doesn't understand are the left-wing Jews, or even the centrist Jews. He felt that the standard approach was contemptuous against the Arabs. In the way he understood the Arabs, which is unfortunate because we would like to have things the same way. Meaning, what I mean by that is, if you think logically, practically, from a Western mindset, look at the way the Israeli Arabs live. They have a better lifestyle than any other Arabs in the Middle East. They might as well be living in America. Almost. Being Israeli citizens. Yeah, most Israeli Arabs, support the Palestinian cause. Why? Because they don't care about living the good life. They care about their national honor. It's a different culture. It's a different mindset. Whereas most Jews, living in the Holy Land, they would rather be care of him, had a lot of respect for him, whatever. And the Zionist leader, he said, he doesn't understand his grandkids couldn't give a damn about what he believes in. And here your grandson is treating you like a king. And we all know the story. It's a very famous story. He said, well, the difference is you believe you come from a monkey, so you believe in Darwin. So your grandson sees you as 2 generations closer to a monkey. Me, I believe that, and my grandson believes that God created Adam, and then also we were at Mount Sinai. We had the closest relationship to God there. So I'm 2 generations closer to Sinai, or 2 generations closer to Adam. And so I'm deserving of respect, and you're not deserving of respect because your ideology robs you of that respect. And my ideology is what gives me the respect. But the fact of the matter is still, that being said, it's a nice story. That's a fact of the matter. Most Israelis, they don't give a damn about what the ideology and the idealism of Herzl or Ben Gurion or any, they don't care. They just want to live their lives, and they don't understand what's all of this about. Why are we in this situation? What is it for? Even they go through the army that's supposed to be there to brainwash them. That's why they have an army. It's to make everybody's mind all think the same. It's to brainwash them. It's not about defense. And it's about assimilation. And still, so that's the thing. So that's what's going on. What else could we say about this? Excuse me. There was something I wanted to say in another video about sociology. Now it's late enough in this video. If anyone made it this long, they deserve to hear it. What the Lubavitcher Rebbe was against giving away land. Now that halacha I mentioned, it applies both in the Holy Land and elsewhere in the world. The same law. So we could perhaps say there's a sociological aspect to that. What is it? It's that the Lubavitcher Rebbe himself saw what happened in Crown Heights. Now, the one Hasidic group that everybody loves, and who loves everybody, is well known. It's always the Palace of Peace for many years, until whatever. Classically, in America, 20th century, post-war 20th century, is Babov. It's well known. The Babov Rav, his yard site was Rosh Chodesh Menachem Av, the yard site of Aaron HaKohen, and the Hess made him. They said he was Oyev Shalom, Roidev Shalom, Oyev Sabrius, Mekarvan L'Torah. That was the Babov Rav. Zichus Yigaleinu L'Kol Zolamein. Excuse me. And Babov, they loved everybody, and everybody loved Babov. There's only one group that didn't love Babov, even though Babov had no problem with them. But the group that hated Babov was Lubavitch. Why? Babov used to be in Crown Heights, and when they left, when they moved to Borough Park, they just sold to anybody. They weren't particular only to sell to Jews. So Baba Vasum Lubavitch was also going to move to Borough Park, Probably the world would have been a much better place, because it probably would have normalized it, because it wouldn't be living in a bubble. But if Lubavitch, they wanted to work things out with that, so they should have went and approached the Baba V'Rav and worked things out. And probably could have worked it out. Neither had the foresight to see what would come about. So, but perhaps subsequent to that, and how he saw his community destroyed and so forth, I think maybe that's what Lubavitcher Rebbe, sociologically speaking, made such a big deal about Shtachim and things like that, about the territories in Israel and whatever. But again, we could give away sovereignty without giving away ownership.